When Prince William made his late-night appearance at the gates of Windsor with a sealed envelope in hand, no one expected the tremor it would unleash. But inside that envelope lay a single-page statement that would send the royal establishment spiraling. The message? A secret trust fund left behind by Princess Diana was never meant for the institution, but for one woman, Catherine. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The moment William's silhouette emerged under the estate's floodlights, those who witnessed it knew something unprecedented was unfolding. There were no press secretaries, no royal motorcade, just the future king walking up to a podium that hadn't been touched in months. At precisely 11:47 p.m., with no palace clearance and against every protocol in the royal handbook, William read a statement that stunned even the most seasoned royal correspondents. In accordance with the private directives of my late mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, a trust fund was established to ensure the preservation of compassion, dignity, and strength in the heart of the monarchy. This fund, known to only a handful, was created solely in honor of Catherine, Princess of Wales. The gravity of his voice, the undeniable emotion clinging to every syllable. This was not political theatre. It was personal. It was war. As the night swallowed Windsor in silence, media lines lit up across the globe. Royal experts, journalists, and stunned citizens alike scrambled to understand what they had just heard. The narrative flipped on its head before dawn. This was not a leak, not a rumor whispered through the pages of a tabloid. It was a direct shot from within. The wording in William's statement was sharp, deliberate, almost surgical. Diana had left something behind that bypassed the institution entirely, a move that sent shockwaves not just through the public but deep within palace walls. Royal aides, blindsided and unprepared, worked through the night in a frantic attempt to verify the legitimacy of the trust. Meanwhile, sources close to the family reported an emotional Catherine, her face streaked with tears as she read the statement handed to her by William, only moments before it went public. It wasn't just the wealth, though, that alone could shift internal power dynamics. It was what the act symbolized. Diana had spoken from beyond the grave, and her words made clear that she had placed her hopes not in the crown, but in the woman she believed could carry her legacy forward. The gravity of the situation was not lost on senior royals. This wasn't just another family secret spilled to the press. This was a torch passed through time, one that illuminated a painful truth. Diana never trusted the establishment to safeguard the heart of the monarchy. She entrusted that to Catherine, and in doing so, she shattered the fragile peace the firm had spent decades trying to restore after her death. But as palace staff raced to contain the flames, one question echoed through every corridor. How did Diana manage to hide something so significant for so long? Buried beneath layers of royal tradition and ironclad secrecy was a paper trail no one thought to follow until now. Diana, ever the strategist, wove a hidden path through offshore records, discreet legal partners, and anonymous trustees to ensure her final wishes bypassed the institution she feared. What began as a whisper in private banking circles soon snowballed into a royal scandal of seismic proportions. Because behind the soft-spoken grace of the people's princess was a mind, capable of outmaneuvering the very system that sought to control her narrative. What she left behind wasn't merely wealth, it was a roadmap of rebellion. It started with a traceable flicker in the Caymans. An offshore account, dormant for decades, suddenly showed a movement minor, almost unnoticeable, but unmistakably linked to a trust under Diana's name. What raised eyebrows wasn't the money, it was the signature attached to it. Handwritten and authenticated by a long-retired solicitor from London, the signature dated back to 1996, just months before the final unravelling of Diana's marriage. That same solicitor, known for handling high-profile celebrity privacy cases, had reportedly met with Diana at least 5 times that year, always off the official record, always alone. Their meetings, it now seems, weren't about damage control. They were about building a fortress, one that could outlive her. The most chilling part of the discovery came in the form of coded references buried deep within financial paperwork. Diana used aliases, pseudonyms no one had connected to her before. Embedded in the ledgers were references to names such as Miranda Hartwell and Elara W., now believed to be tied directly to her covert identity for legal maneuvers. The trust deed itself, once decrypted, included one line that changed everything: sole beneficiary Catherine, upon the event of enduring matrimony. It wasn't vague, it wasn't symbolic, it was a binding legal stipulation pointing to one person and one condition. Diana had mapped out a future she wouldn't live to see, but ensured would be honoured, even if it meant breaking every royal norm. Palace audits, it turns out, never caught wind of the trust, not because they didn't look, but because they couldn't see. The encryption used in the documents was military grade, applied by a private security firm in Switzerland whose only known CLI Ent at the time was a high-profile European aristocrat with ties to Diana's charitable network. The encryption was so tight that even when flagged in a security sweep during a 2003 internal financial probe, it was dismissed as unrelated foreign material. But someone knew. In 1997, a legal courier was seen entering Kensington Palace several times in the weeks leading up to Diana's final trip to Paris. Anonymous, unobtrusive, and always during dusk. The courier's identity remains protected, but receipts and security logs confirm their visits. Each time, they carried a slim black case believed to have contained the evolving drafts of the trust deed and encrypted directives. Diana wasn't leaving loose ends. She was sealing her legacy with precision. While historians and aides pieced together Diana's covert operations, the current royals realized they had more to fear. This wasn't just about money, but power. Why Catherine? Why now? As insiders sifted through Diana's handwritten letters and private tapes, the reasoning became heartbreakingly clear. Diana didn't just see Catherine as a future queen, she saw her as the final hope to restore humanity within a fractured monarchy. Long before the world knew the name Catherine Middleton, Diana was already speaking of someone who would heal the one who carries my grief. In her diary, beneath torn pages and faded ink, she referred to this person simply as the girl who will mend William. That phrase would later become the heart of the controversy, a message from mother to son, a prophecy of emotional restoration, and a direct challenge to the cold mechanics of royalty. Private footage, long buried in the archives of Kensington, paints a portrait of Diana far more vulnerable and perceptive than the world remembers. In one clip, she speaks candidly about her deepest fear, that her sons would become polished yet hollow, emotionally distant and shaped more by duty than love. They need someone, she whispered, who can teach them how to feel again, especially William. Her voice cracked as she admitted she didn't believe the system would allow it. And yet, the mere existence of her trust fund proved she had found a loophole. She couldn't be there, but she could prepare the way. And that preparation had a name: Catherine. As more documents surfaced, the comparisons between Diana and Catherine grew impossible to ignore. Not in appearance, but in spirit. The soft resilience, the knowing silences, the ability to endure scrutiny with grace. Empathy, restraint, emotional intelligence, traits that weren't just admired but necessary. In William, Diana saw pain wrapped in formality. In Catherine, she saw the salve. The trust fund's conditions spoke volumes. It wasn't just a financial gift, it was moral in nature. The core clause, the beneficiary must maintain moral integrity and enduring love in her union with the heir. That phrasing was not generic, it was intimate. It was personal, and it was unmistakably targeted. It said that on their third wedding anniversary, William handed Catherine a bundle of letters Diana had written in the final months of her life. The letters were sealed in a silk pouch, untouched for over a decade. What Catherine read that night left her visibly shaken, according to those closest to the couple. She hadn't just married into a royal family, she had stepped into a silent pact that was made years before she'd even met William. And in that moment, the burden of legacy shifted to her shoulders, but not as a duty, as a calling. Outside the palace walls, the response was swift and powerful. As news of the trust's specificity spread, the public, still fiercely loyal to Diana's memory, rallied around Catherine. She became not just a royal, but a living echo of the people's princess. Not because she tried to imitate Diana, but because Diana had quietly chosen her. And in a monarchy where everything is tradition, that choice felt revolutionary. But not everyone celebrated this inheritance. Inside Buckingham, the mood turned darker, with whispers of betrayal and brewing rebellion. Within hours of the announcement, Camilla, closest allies convened in a closed-door meeting in the Green Drawing Room. What followed was not diplomacy. It was damage control laced with barely concealed rage. Catherine had stepped into the spotlight, and Camilla was no longer the narrative's center. The atmosphere behind palace doors turned volatile. No official statement was made, but those present could feel it in the air. The Queen Consort had been blindsided, not only by the content of William's declaration, but by its timing, its symbolism, and worst of all, its implications. What had once been quiet tensions between two women was now a full-blown ideological rupture, with Diana's ghost pulling the strings from beyond the grave. Camilla's private secretary acted first, launching an immediate internal inquiry to determine the origin of the trust fund leaks. Every solicitor tied to the palace books was discreetly contacted. Files were reviewed, old security reports re-examined. There were whispers that certain names one's long thought irrelevant had resurfaced. But the legal walls Diana built had stood. And with each unanswered question, Camilla's frustration turned to fury. Senior courtiers were caught behind closed doors using terms like subversive move, threat to cohesion, and a deliberate destabilization. The narrative was being reshaped, and it wasn't one they controlled. Catherine, who had spent years mastering the art of royal restraint, was now at the epicenter of a shift, and Camilla's camp couldn't accept it. Privately, the Queen Consort's inner circle labeled Cat Irene ungrateful, a word repeated so often it reportedly became the unofficial phrase of the week. In their view, Diana's trust wasn't just a gift to Catherine, it was a slight against Camilla, a reminder that in death Diana still held the loyalty of the people and now possibly the power. Advisors began pressuring King Charles to publicly clarify the status of the trust fund, insisting the monarchy could not afford ambiguity. But the king hesitated. For Charles, this wasn't just a legal dilemma, it was emotional. The weight of William's decision, the echoes of Diana's voice, and the tension within his own household were pulling him in opposite directions. Behind the veil of civility, a dangerous strategy began to form. Advisors floated the possibility of a countermove, perhaps a royal honor bestowed upon Camilla, or a press campaign subtly framing Catherine's gain as improper. Nothing concrete was approved, but the whispers were loud enough to travel. It was no longer about Catherine receiving the trust. It was about what the trust represented. A rebalancing, a redirection of legacy. The palace wasn't just managing fallout, it was contemplating retaliation. And in the shadows of the throne, fractures deepened. One of the most damning? The growing divide between father and son. Charles reportedly questioned the timing of William's announcement. William, in turn, offered no apology. According to sources close to the situation, he simply stated, "It was time." Yet while the corridors filled with heated whispers, a storm was quietly building in Parliament, one that would expose the monarchy's deepest vulnerabilities. When members of Parliament demanded a formal review into the origins and legality of Diana's hidden trust, it triggered a constitutional dilemma with no clear precedent. Was the fund a personal gift or a concealed asset of national interest? What began as whispers within political backrooms quickly escalated into a full-blown inquiry that placed the monarchy directly in the line of fire. For decades, royal finances had danced behind veils of tradition and privilege, but Diana's trust, unearthed and aimed with surgical precision at Catherine, forced a new question to the floor of Westminster. Could the legacy of a princess legally and morally undermine the institution meant to protect her? Cross-party pressure mounted on the Chancellor of the Exchequer as Labour, Conservative and Liberal Democrat MPs demanded immediate transparency. The calls were no longer just about accountability, they were about exposure. The monarchy had survived scandal, crisis and abdication, but now it was staring down the barrel of modern scrutiny. Behind closed doors, the Chancellor's office struggled to draw a line between royal privacy and public right to know. And while the palace remained publicly silent, their financial advisors were quietly summoned to a closed-door committee hearing. There, a name was spoken in hushed tones, not as a royal title but as a legal entity. Catherine. The moment Catherine's name surfaced in formal Commons debate, the headlines turned feral. Newspapers erupted with split covers, half celebrating Diana's foresight, the other demanding an audit of every royal financial document post-1990. Editorials branded it a crisis of legacy. Some painted Catherine as an unwitting heiress to a storm she didn't ask for. Others accused her of benefiting from what they now claimed might have been state-protected resources. Fuel was added to the fire when a leaked internal Treasury memo hinted that Diana may have used residual security funds originally intended for official travel to discreetly shield the legal establishment of the trust. The memo, never meant for public eyes, became front-page material within hours. Suddenly. Why? The narrative shifted. The People's Princess was no longer just a symbol of grace, she was at the center of a posthumous financial rebellion. Did Diana weaponize her legacy? One tabloid screamed. Royal purse or public treasure? Another questioned. As the media fed on the growing tension, the palace found itself in an impossible bind. Denying the fund's existence was no longer an option. Defending it meant placing Catherine and, by extension, William into a political quagmire. And yet, remaining silent risked losing the very public trust they so desperately needed to retain. Back in Parliament, calls grew louder for the creation of a Royal Wealth Oversight Committee, an idea once laughed off as Republican fantasy now suddenly embraced by senior members of government. Catherine, despite her silence, had become the unwilling face of reform. Every frame of her public appearances was dissected for signs of guilt, calculation, or defiance. And still, the palace offered nothing but cold, strategic stillness. But just as the institution tried to pivot into defense mode, another revelation exploded, this time from within Diana's inner circle. For over 2 decades, Paul Burrell held back the full truth until now. In a taped interview scheduled only upon Catherine's receipt of the trust, the former butler reveals the private pact Diana made before her final trip to Paris. A pact meant to alter royal succession from the inside. Burrell, once dismissed by critics as merely a loyal servant seeking the limelight, had long claimed to possess information too dangerous to release, while the monarchy remained unshaken. But when William publicly confirmed the existence of the trust, the tape was triggered, its timing exact, its impact devastating. The man who once carried Diana's most intimate secrets had finally spoken, and what he revealed unraveled decades of royal narrative in a matter of minutes. The tape was raw, unpolished, and laced with the trembling emotion of a man still haunted by the weight of his silence. Burrell looked straight into the lens and uttered the words that would explode across global media within hours. This was never meant for the crown. It was for the girl. In those 10 words, he delivered a revelation that reframed everything. According to Burrell, Diana had feared Catherine would one day be isolated, not by the public, but by the very institution she would serve. The trust fund, he claimed, was never merely about financial security, it was protection, a buffer against the cold, calculating hands of palace politics, and perhaps most critically, it was a test. The fund would only be released if William remained loyal to Catherine through the crown's pressures. Loyalty, Diana believed, was the only thing that could resist corruption. As the tape continued, Burrell recalled the chilling detail of a private moment weeks before Diana's fatal trip. She had summoned him quietly, placed a sealed envelope in his hand, and whispered that it must go to her solicitor, no matter what happened. That envelope, later discovered in the solicitor's archives, was the final legal instruction that activated the trust. The confession sent shockwaves through the royal legal team, who scrambled to reassess the timeline of Diana's final decisions. It was no longer possible to claim this trust had been a whimsical notion. It was a carefully plotted act of posthumous defiance. The reaction was immediate and volatile. As the tape went viral, reactions within the palace grew darker. Sources revealed that Burrell's representatives received veiled threats within 24 hours of the clip's release. Legal firms, media outlets, even anonymous callers began circling like vultures. But the damage had been done. The world now knew that Diana didn't simply leave a financial gift, she had built a legacy weapon, locked behind conditions and held in silence until the moment her chosen successor stepped forward. And she had entrusted that plan not to the institution, but to the hands of a man it had once discarded. Suddenly, it wasn't just the establishment unraveling. It was the foundation of trust between key royal players. Behind palace doors, the split was no longer symbolic. Charles, Camilla, Anne, even Edward lines were drawn in quiet, knowing glances and unspoken betrayals. And at the center of it all stood William, battling ghosts from his mother's past and expectations from his nation's future. The atmosphere was no longer tense, it was combustible. The trust fund had done more than shift public sentiment, it had cracked the inner foundation of royal unity. Where there had once been coordinated silence, there was now private outrage, hidden meetings, and a desperation to restore control. But William would not yield. He refused all palace orders to retract or reframe the announcement. To him, it wasn't just about the trust, it was about honoring his mother's final wish without compromise, without filtering it through royal convenience. Inside their private residence, Catherine, ever composed, reportedly urged him to protect what peace remained within the family. She had no interest in becoming a figure of division, but it was already too late. Charles, overwhelmed by the spiraling situation, called for an emergency inner royal session meant only for blood royals and principal advisors. Every major decision about the crown's future would be laid bare. William was invited. He did not attend. His absence sent a message louder than words. This was not a negotiation. This was fulfillment. The silence in that meeting was heavier than any argument, and it echoed all the way to Balmoral. Then came the leak. A private phone call believed to be between William and a trusted confidant somehow made its way to a foreign journalist. In the recording, William's voice is low, steady, and resolute. "This is what she wanted," he says, "and I won't let anyone rewrite her intention." The leak sent royal aides into a panic. It confirmed what? They had feared most, that William wasn't acting rashly. He was acting with clarity, with conviction. He wasn't just defending Catherine, he was defending Diana's final move against a system she never fully trusted. Meanwhile, another fracture deepened. Tensions between William and Harry reignited, this time not over titles or press stories, but legacy. Sources close to both camps say Harry was blindsided by the announcement and questioned why he wasn't informed beforehand. William reportedly offered no explanation. What had once been a bond shaped by grief was now a divide sharpened by omission. And through it all, the children George and Charlotte were kept away from key royal engagements, whether by design or by instinct. They were shielded from the public eye as the monarchy convulsed in the grip of its own reckoning. What had started as a tribute to Diana had become a battlefield of competing loyalties, unspoken rivalries, and silent power plays. William stood alone in many rooms now, not because he was defiant, but because he had chosen to act where others hesitated. And yet, in the middle of the chaos, it was Catherine who would soon shift the entire narrative once more, not with force, but with something even more powerful. But when Catherine finally broke her silence, the mood across Britain shifted, and so did the monarchy's future. With poise and conviction, Catherine stepped before the cameras in Windsor's East Garden not as a duchess or consort, but as Diana's spiritual heir. What she said would silence critics, awaken a new generation, and cement a turning point in royal history. The moment was not arranged through palace protocol. There were no velvet ropes or grand introductions. Instead, there was Catherine calm, resolute, standing under the weight of a legacy that had shifted the foundations of monarchy itself. This was not a rebuttal to scandal or a scry. Petered royal appearance. It was a declaration of identity, of purpose, of lineage beyond blood and crown. She began simply, by thanking the British public for their unwavering grace in moments of uncertainty, her voice steady but laced with the emotion of someone who had carried too much in silence. There was no defense offered, no attempt to diminish the storm that had enveloped the monarchy. Instead, Catherine turned the chaos into clarity. "I will not honor Diana's legacy with wealth," she said. "I will honor it with purpose." The words struck like lightning. Here was a woman not seeking sympathy or grandeur, but redemption not for herself, but for an institution adrift. Her presence didn't diminish Diana's spirit. It echoed it, modernized it, and offered it back to the people. Then came the true heart of her address, the announcement of the Heart Trust, a new initiative designed to protect and uplift vulnerable women across the UK and beyond. Built from the financial foundation Diana left behind, the trust would be Catherine's first public step into autonomous action, an act rooted not in charity, but justice. This wasn't a royal patronage. It was a legacy transformed into lifeline. And it came not from the palace, but from the one woman the palace could never fully control. She closed her address not with a royal motto, but with Diana's own words, "Only do what your heart tells you." It was both a farewell and a beginning. Within minutes, the public response ignited. Hashtags, headlines, and heartfelt tributes surged across social media. For the first time in weeks, the tone had shifted from confusion and division to collective admiration. Catherine hadn't just spoken, she had connected. And in doing so, she reclaimed Diana's story from the clutches of controversy and gave it new life in her own voice. In town halls, classrooms, and television panels, the conversation turned from scandal to substance. Catherine's legacy was no longer in question. It was being written in real time. Hours later, Buckingham Palace issued a carefully worded statement, supportive but strained, acknowledging Catherine's speech while subtly reinforcing the Crown's control over all royal initiatives. But it was too late to rewrite the moment. The people had already decided. In Catherine, they saw not just the future queen, but the completion of a journey Diana had begun in defiance, heartbreak, and courage. The monarchy, once again, had been reshaped from the outside in. And yet, in the echoes of Catherine's promise, the question remains, what else did Diana leave behind? Just as the world caught its breath, news of a second envelope locked in a private London vault surfaced, handwritten by Diana, unsealed only upon confirmation of the trust's activation. It hints at a final revelation, one that could redefine royal lineage forever. The timing was no accident. It appeared just as tensions began to simmer rather than boil, as if Diana herself had orchestrated one final escalation. While the first envelope had detonated the monarchy's illusions of control, this second message, its contents shrouded in secrecy, loomed like a ghost at the gates. The only words visible on its surface were chillingly specific. For the day she stands alone. Speculation exploded. Royal sources confer. Med the envelope's existence, but refused to comment on what lay inside. Only a few knew where it had been stored, a private law firm in Mayfair, with connections to Diana's original estate solicitor. It had never been listed in official estate documents. It hadn't passed through probate. It had simply waited. And now, with the Heart Trust triggered, the seal had been broken, but the content remained classified. That silence only deepened the mystery. Inside the walls of Buckingham and Kensington, aides scrambled. Lawyers convened in emergency sessions. Senior palace figures were spotted entering and exiting legal chambers, flanked by constitutional advisors whose faces betrayed nothing but urgency. What could possibly be inside that envelope that would require such discretion? Some speculated it was a direct statement regarding the line of succession, a whispered possibility that Catherine, in some unimaginable future, was to be considered not only queen consort, but something far more radical. Others feared it contained provisions for George and Charlotte, tied not to ceremonial roles, but to legal entitlements unknown to even their father. The idea that Diana had prepared contingencies for a monarchy she no longer trusted to protect her bloodline rattled even the most stoic traditionalists. It was as if she had seen too clearly, too far, and planned accordingly. Theories ran wild. One persistent rumor claimed the envelope contained references to a private conversation between Diana and constitutional scholars in the 1990s, discussing reforms to hereditary title protections should unforeseen crises arise. Another claimed it was a sealed directive, instructing Catherine on what to do if the monarchy ever turned on her. Whatever the truth, the consequences of its unsealing were already unfolding in real time. Debate swelled in Parliament and press rooms alike. Was Catherine being subtly positioned for more than ceremonial duty? Was this a succession shift in slow motion? Royal analysts, once cautious with their language, now spoke openly about a potential reimagining of monarchy, Led not by the institution, but by Diana's legacy through Catherine, the public too began revisiting Diana's life in a new light. Old clips, diary excerpts and interviews flooded the airwaves. Emotional montages of her humanitarian work ran side by side with footage of Catherine's recent rise. It was no longer just memory, it was momentum. Diana was not just being remembered, she was being invoked. And the comparison between her strength in exile and Catherine's calm in the storm could no longer be ignored. Across the country, one sentiment began to crystallize. Perhaps this had always been the plan. As shadows deepen and truths surface, one thing is clear: the story Diana began is far from over, and the monarchy will never be the same again. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.